Ilahi ta'ala, I ask Allah to make this easy for me and for you. We're still talking about the confused woman. And the confused woman is a non-discerning woman. So we're still talking about the non-discerning woman. Under the non-discerning or non-discriminating woman, there's the confused one. And the confused one is the one whose forgetfulness, she's forgetful about something. And her forgetfulness pertains to two things: time or duration. Time of menses or duration of menses. Either she forgot the time, or she forgot the duration, or she forgot both. That's the confused one. Time means, when did it used to come? In the beginning of the month, or in the middle of the month, for example. And duration means, how long did it used to last? 5 days, 7 days? She might have forgotten one of those, or the other of those, or both of those. So the author, may Allah have mercy upon her, said, the confused woman who remembers the time and not the duration. And vice versa. The confused woman who remembers the duration and not the time. If the woman remembered the time, when it used to come, but not the duration, how long it used to last, or she remembers the duration, how long it used to last, but not the time, when it used to come, then whatever is certainly menses or purity is judged as such. As for the time that is possibly menses or purity, so that obscure time, that unclear time for her, she takes precautionary measures. Precautionary measures. Precautionary measures means that she acts like a menstruating woman for which cases? When she takes precautionary measures, then she acts like a menstruating woman for which cases? Someone said, reciting the Quran outside of prayer and touching the Quran, and also for sexual intercourse. So that's correct. Very good. Thank you. MashaAllah. May Allah reward you. So, as for the time that is possibly menstruation or purity, she takes precautionary measures for it. So, the confused woman who remembers the time and not the duration. She remembers when it used to come, but not how long it used to last. An example of a woman who remembers the time and not the duration is for her to say. So we say, an example, this is just to give an idea. It's not going to necessarily come up like this. A woman's case not going to necessarily come up like this. So let's just take a scenario. An example is for her to say, my menses used to start at the beginning of the month, but I do not remember its amount, how long it would last. In this case, the first day and night of the month are certainly menses, because menstruation would not be less than this. And she remembers the time, which is the beginning of the month. The second half of the month is purity with certainty, because menstruation does not last more than 15 days. What is between those two bears the possibility of menstruation and purity and the cessation of blood. So she takes precautionary measures. Here, the author mentions three things. What is between those two, between the first day and the second half of the month, bears the possibility of menses. Could be that she's bleeding and that's menses. And it bears the possibility of being purity, that it's all istihada and she's not really menstruating. And it bears the possibility of the cessation of blood, meaning it's possible that this is when the bleeding stops. It's another matter in itself. Not when it starts. Like on the first day, she wouldn't say, maybe my bleeding has stopped, because she remembers that it used to start at the beginning of the month. So she's not going to say, maybe it's stopping now. But between that first day and the second half of the month, any day could possibly be, since she forgot, when the bleeding stops. So she takes precautionary measures. The confused woman who remembers the duration and not the time. The example of the woman who remembers the duration and not the time, so she remembers how long it would last, but not when it would come, is for her to say, my menses was 5 days in the first 10 days of the month. My menses was 5 days in the first 10 days of the month, but I do not know when it starts. The first day of the month, and then 5 days, or the second day of the month, and then last for 5 days, or the third day of the month, and then last for 5 days, etc. And I know that on the first day I am pure. So this is a very specific case here. That's because the author wants to set us up for an important scenario. So again, any woman's case might not come out exactly like this, but this is a scenario that has been formulated for us so that we can get a picture, so that we can conclude from these. So an example of a woman who remembers the duration and not the time is for her to say, my menses was 5 days in the first 10 days of the month, but I don't remember when it would start, except that I know it's not the first day. I would be pure on the first day. So the sixth day then is menstruation with certainty. If this is her scenario that she remembers, then the sixth day is menstruation with certainty. And the first day is purity with certainty. And likewise, the last 20 days of the month are purity with certainty. So we're going to take this scenario that's being given here so that we can become accustomed to how to pinpoint the exact days, yani the days that would be for sure menses, and the days that would not be menses for sure. And then anything else is going to have precautionary measures. So the second through the fifth days bear the possibility of menses and purity. So she takes precautionary measures during that time. Now, just for me to say these words might sound not simple, but we're going to see the diagram, inshallah. The second through fifth days bear the possibility of menstruation and purity, so she takes precautionary measures during that time. However, this time bears the possibility of the beginning of menstruation, not its cessation. Yani, the second through fifth days bear the possibility of menses and purity, but if it's menses, it would be the onset of menses, not that it's stopping, that it's coming on. Because if it's coming on, means she's not going to take a ghusl. If it's going off, means she's going to take a ghusl. Therefore, she is not obligated to perform a ghusl during these days. The 7th through the 10th also bear the possibility of menses impurity, but it bears the possibility of the cessation of bleeding, that it's stopping. So she takes precautionary measures in those days and performs a ghusl for every obligation if she does not remember the time of cessation, as mentioned earlier. The days that bear the possibility of cessation are called doubtfully pure, which in our example is from the 7th until the end of the 10th. The days that do not bear the possibility of cessation are called doubtfully menstruation, And in our example are from the second, and in our example, they are from the second to the end of the fifth day. Let's see. This was my favorite diagram to make. MashaAllah. So here, she knows that her menses last for 5 days. And she knows that it would be at the beginning of the month. And she knows that on the first day, she would be pure. And again, someone might say, this example is so specific. Yes, it is. That's so to set us up for this here, so we can see what's going on here. So if this were a woman's case, the first day, she's certainly pure. Her menses doesn't go past 5 days. She remembers that. But she doesn't remember exactly would it come on the second or the third or the fourth or what. So the first day is certainly purity. She's bleeding though. Remember, she's bleeding on this first day. She knows for sure this is not menses. She knows for sure this first day is not menses. Now the second day is doubtfully menses, starting, not ending. So she's not going to take a ghusl on this day. This is possibly the start of menses. And likewise, the third day, the fourth day, and the fifth day, all of these are possibly the start of menses. So, the second day of the month could be the first out of her 5 days. And likewise, the third day could be the first of her 5 days, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth. All of these could be possibly the first of her 5 days. And remember when we said that the sixth day is menses for sure? That's because no matter the scenario, it's going to wind up that the sixth day would be menses. Whichever one of these days, her 5 days of menses starts at the beginning of the month, other than the first day, the sixth day is always going to be menses. So for sure, she's on menses there. The only thing that's doubtful here is if is which day it is, but not that it's menses. Then when we go into the seventh day, now she's doubtfully pure because it's possibly the end of her menses. And likewise, the 8th and 9th and 10th days are possibly the end of her menses. So that means on the 7th day, she's going to take a ghusl, the 8th day, the 9th day, the 8th day, the 9th day, the 10th day, she's going to take a ghusl. And the 11th day, she's certainly pure, although she's bleeding. She knows for sure this is not menses. As for if the woman forgot, so here, this diagram we just went over, I'm going to study that, because even for myself, if I let some time pass and just open up that diagram, at least until this day of mine, I wouldn't be able to just explain the diagram. Because I need to review this and review it and review it. I know that for myself, that's my case. As for if the woman forgot if the menstruation started in the beginning, or in the middle, or the end of the month, she takes precautionary measures for the entire month, like the confused woman who forgot the duration and the time. This is despite that she remembers the duration of her menses, because by forgetting the time, all of the time is possibly menses, and it's possibly purity, and it's possibly cessation. So she's going to take a ghusl every day. Then the author said, may Allah have mercy on her, if postpartum bleeding exceeds 60 days. So now we're going to focus in on postpartum bleeding. If postpartum bleeding exceeds 60 days, the judgment would be similar to the case of menstruation exceeding 15 days. The differentiating woman resorts to her ability to differentiate. So a woman delivered a baby. On day 61, she says, for sure, this is not all postpartum. And if she could tell the difference between strong blood and weak blood, she would say the strong blood was the postpartum and the weak blood was the sickness. The differentiating woman resorts to her ability to differentiate. She considers the strong blood as postpartum and the weak as defective bleeding. If the woman who cannot distinguish were a beginner, she resorts to the minimum of postpartum bleeding, which is a moment or any blood that exists. And if she were accustomed to postpartum bleeding and remembered her postpartum habit, she resorts to her habit. How would she have a habit for postpartum bleeding? Like if she had several babies or even one before. Just like menses. So if she had a baby and then she had postpartum bleeding, by that one postpartum bleeding, that established her habit. So if she has another baby, if she bleeds like that again, same way, then that reinforces her habit. So she has the norm for postpartum. So if she has another baby and then she goes into 61 days and all the blood came out the same way, then she's going to say, my habit from my previous postpartum bleedings was such and such days. So all of that was my postpartum bleeding and everything after that was sickness bleeding. Or else the previous details of the judgments pertaining to menstruation would apply. Footnote here, know that the rules and judgments pertaining to menstruation are the same rules for postpartum bleeding, except two things. Menstruation is a sign of puberty, and postpartum bleeding is not, because if a girl is not pubescent, she will not get pregnant. And also, the rules of iddah are based on the menstrual cycle, not the postpartum bleeding. And other than those two cases, menses and postpartum have the same judgments. Some scholars said postpartum bleeding is merely concentrated menstrual blood. So now we've reached this important section of the book that has scenarios. So this is like test now. Imam al-Juwayni said in Nihayatul Matlab, the one who is researching the judgments of defective bleeding ought not be bored with the repetitive scenarios and their recurrence in the various chapters. Yes. And that's like other things too. The knowledge, learning the obligatory knowledge, you're not going to be bored by repeating that. Learning inheritance, you learn inheritance, you need to know fractions. And then you're going to do so many scenarios over and over and over and over so you get good at it, to know who gets what, how to split the money. So who wants to be researching this and good at this should not get bored with the repetition. Question 1. The woman whose habit is to menstruate for 6 days at the beginning of the month and is pure for 24 days. Now let's try to answer before we look at the diagrams, see if we understand. A woman whose habit is to menstruate for 6 days at the beginning of the month and she's pure for 24 days. She sees black blood for 5 days, then red for 12 days, then black blood for 2 days, then yellow blood for 1 month. So what do we judge as her menses? Let's see. It says here, her habit is 6 days. When are we even going to regard her habit in the first place? When does her habit or her personal norm have any bearing on the judgment? 5, 4, 3,
When she's
2.
not mumayyiza?
Correct. When she's a woman who can't tell the difference between the bleedings, that's when her habit is relevant. Otherwise, it's not. So we're still going to say this. This is the scenario so that we understand everything. Her habit is to menstruate for 6 days, but that might not matter. We're going to see. Her habit is to menstruate for 6 days at the beginning of the month, and then to be pure for 24 days. Okay, so it means she has menses every month. She sees black blood for 5 days. Okay, so she's going to first of all say those 5 days are menses from the beginning. Then she said she sees red blood for 12 days. Now, on day 6, when the blood changes, I'm not looking at the diagram. On day 6, when the blood changes, she's going to say, this is still menses, but it changed. Let me take note. So 5 days, then 12. What's 5 plus 12? That's 17. So she's 2 days over how much could be a valid menses. All of it can't be menses. Her norm is to menstruate 6 days and be pure for 24 days. She sees black blood for 5 days and red blood for 12 days. And then it becomes black again for 2 more days. Then she sees yellow blood for an entire month. So what do we judge as her menses? Here's a diagram. So day 1, she's going to say this is menses. Day 6, she's going to say this is still menses, but it changed. Day 16, she's going to say this can't all be menses. And she's going to say it must have been that my menses was 5 days. She doesn't know what's going to happen in the future, so she can't count that yet. So she's going to say on day 16, it must have been that my menses was 5 days. So then day 16, she has sickness, bleeding. Day 17, apparently, Yani, that's what she's going to judge it as. Day 17, then day 18, it got strong again. She's going to say, it got strong again. So is this menses? So what's she going to do? She's going to say, wait, maybe the red blood was purity. Let's see if it's 15 days. It wasn't 15 days. It was only 12 days. It can't be purity because purity has to be at least 15 days. So the red blood alone can't be purity. So then on day 18, it got black again, and day 19. And then day 20, it turned yellow and stayed like that for a month. Now, for sure, day 20 and beyond, all this yellow, well, for the rest of the month, that is, from day 20 to day 30, for sure, that's istihalba. Because the rule is, if you had 3 colors and 2 of them together are stronger than the third one, and also if those 2 strong ones together can be the menses, then that's the menses. And the weak one is the sickness blood. But here, this red and black together can't be menses. It's too much. But the red and black compared to the yellow is definitely, for the rest of the month, istihalba. So what's our menses here? Neither am I. Let's see. Answer. This woman has not satisfied the conditions of differentiating. I feel silly. It's obvious. You couldn't tell. She's not a discerning woman. So what's she supposed to do then? She's not a discerning woman. She relies on her habit. She goes back to her norm. So for me, I don't know about you. For me, I got tricked by the fact that the colors are switching. I forgot to I forgot to regard that what? She's not a discerning woman, even if she sees different colored blood, but it doesn't line up with the days properly. If the strong blood doesn't line up with the days of menses, and the weak blood doesn't line up with the days of purity, and it's all continuous, then she's just not a discerning woman. So she's going to rely on her habit. Very good. Alhamdulillah. Hopefully we won't forget that after this. This woman has not satisfied the conditions of differentiating because the two strong bleedings are not separated by 15 days. Also, she is accustomed to menses. Hence, she relies on her habit for menstruation and purity, so she judges the blood of the first 6 days as menses, even though it changed. 5 is black and 6 is red. The first 6 days, that's her menses. Hence, she relies on her habit for menstruation and purity. So she judges the blood of the first 6 days as menses and the following 24 days as defective, despite the color change. In the first 6 days of the following month were menses, and what is after is defective. Yes, the following month, which is all yellow, the first 6 days are going to be menses too. And then the rest is defective. So here, her habit was relevant. A woman whose habit is to menstruate for 6 days. So, the secret of this question 1 is she's not discerning. We need to mention her habit. If her habit weren't mentioned here, we would not know the answer unless we remembered properly. Question 2. A woman has the habit of menstruating for 7 days. One month she saw 3 days of black blood, then 2 months of yellow blood, then 1 day of black blood, then a month of yellow blood. So what do we judge as menstruation? So there's no diagram for this one. Let's repeat. Her habit is 7 days. 1 month she saw 3 days of black blood. So she's going to say on day 1, that's menses. Then 2 whole months of yellow blood. So on day 16, she's going to say, this can't all be menses. And since she could tell the difference, meaning the strong blood did coincide with days of menses, the weak blood did coincide with days of purity. So now her habit is disregarded, and she's just going to say that the first 3 days were menses. She saw 3 days of black blood, then 2 months of yellow blood, then 1 day of black blood, then a month of yellow blood. Yes. So how do we judge her menses? So in this case, her norm is not regarded here. That's what's going to throw you off in this scenario. Her norm is mentioned, and then whatever is appearing here doesn't coincide with her norm. But now the rule is so crystal clear for me, hopefully for you. If a woman is continually bleeding, as long as the strong blood falls within the days of menses, that means at least 24 hours, not more than 15 days. Check. And as long as the weak blood falls within the days of purity, that means not less than 15 days. Could be more, it's not less than 15 days. Also, check. That's true here. And then 1 day of black blood, and then a month of yellow blood. So here, the black bleedings are her menses, and the other bleedings are her sickness. So let's see if I have the right answer here. Answer: there is no consideration given to the woman's habit in this case. Yes, because the conditions of distinguishing have been satisfied. Correct. Hence, the black is judged as menses and the entirety of the yellow is defective because the distinguishing woman judges the weak blood as defective even if it lasted for a long time. Yeah.
When it started people that she said it was enough.
Now the next month, well, repeat your question.
So if she has 3 days of black bleeding,
Mhm.
and the rest is all yellow, does she wait until past 16 days to go back and say all that yellow is Shaykhah, or does she just stop when the black blood stops? That was my menstruation.
Well, here she's going to for this particular scenario,
She knows that this happened for her like 2 months. She knows that the black blood is gonna for the next month until she.
well, the rule is that once that sickness blood is established from the first month, from the first time, then after that she doesn't have to wait. The first time she will wait. The second time she won't wait. That's the rule. Question 3. 1 month, a woman menstruated for 5 days. And in the following month, 6 days. Then in the following 7. Then 5. Then 6. Then 8. Then she experienced defective bleeding. She saw red blood for 20 days. So what do we judge as menses? So let's look at that again. 1 month, a woman menstruated for 5 days. So as soon as it starts, she's going to say this is menses. 5 days, and then it stops, so she takes her ghusl. Fine. Then the following month, 6 days. Okay, she took her ghusl. Then the following 7. Okay, then 5, then 6, then 8. Then she experienced defective bleeding. She saw red blood for 20 days. So what do we judge as menses? So this is the case of the uh, fluctuating norm. Now, first with 5 the first month, then 6 the next month, then 7, then 5, then 6, but not 7. If it was 7, and then she saw sickness bleeding, then she's going to consider it 5 because that's her pattern. 5, then 6, then 7, then 5, then 6. Had it been 7, and then she saw sickness bleeding, then she's going to consider the next month as 5. That's her pattern. 5, 6, 7. 5, 6, 7. So there's going to be 5 after that. But that didn't happen here. 5, 6, 7. 5, 6, 8. So the pattern is broken. So what you're going to do here? Somebody said something here. What is the ruling pertaining to a woman who has menstruation at different times? For instance, sometimes she has it at the beginning of the month and sometimes during a different time of the month. Well, according to exactly the way you asked your question, the answer is when her menses goes off, she takes a ghusl. So I answered your question as you asked it. So if you're looking for something else, maybe you need to adjust your question. What is the ruling pertaining to a woman who has menstruation at different times? For instance, sometimes she has it at the beginning of the month. Okay, when it goes off, she takes a ghusl. And sometimes at a different time in the month. Okay, when it goes off, she takes a ghusl. So maybe you need to adjust your question for me. Now let's see what's the answer to this question 3. Oh, but first, what's my answer? I say, we're going to see though, but in my own calculation, she's going to say 8 days because that was her last menses. Her norm fluctuated, and then the last time she had 8 days, which doesn't even coincide with her um, uh, her her norm. So, and then she had sickness bleeding. So I say 8 days. Let's see. Inshallah, I'm right here. Answer. The conditions of differentiating are not satisfied. Hence, she relies on her habit. Yes. The varying habit is not confirmed for her because it was not repeated twice. Yes. Therefore, the last period canceled what she saw in the months before. Thus, she resorts to her last menses, and her menses is considered to be 8 days. Alhamdulillah. Question 4. A woman has the habit of menstruating for 8 days. 1 month, she saw thick red blood with odor for 6 days. Then, for 10 days, she saw black, thin blood with odor, and then it stopped. So, what do we judge as menses? So, let's see. She has a habit of menstruating for 8 days. So, that's her habit. 1 month, she saw thick red blood with odor for 6 days. So, it's thick, that means it's strong. It's red, so it's weaker than black. And it has odor, so it's strong. So, it has two qualities of strength out of three. Then, for 10 days, she saw black, thin blood with odor. So, black means strong. Thin is weak, and odor means it's strong. So, she also has two strong qualities out of three. Then it stopped. So, what do we judge as menses? She saw thick red blood with odor for 6 days. Then for 10 days, so that means 16 days total. So on day 16, she's going to say, for sure, this is not all menses. Her habit is 8 days. She's not a discriminating woman here. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. She's not a discriminating woman here, so she's going to resort to her habit, which is 8 days. So let's see. Answer. Both bleedings contain two strong characteristics. So the judgment of menses is given to the earlier bleeding. That's right. Got it. In this case, it goes to the earlier bleeding. That's another rule. So let's add that one so we don't forget it after this day, inshallah ta'ala. And the second is the defective bleeding. Therefore, her menses is 6 days. No consideration is given to her habit because she can distinguish. She can distinguish. I got two right? And two wrong. Question 5. A woman has the habit of menstruating for 7 days. 1 month, she saw 6 days of black blood, then 5 days of red blood, then 3 days of pink blood, then 3 days of murky blood, then the rest continued as yellow. MashaAllah. All right, so let's see here. So what's her menses? I'm going to just look at the diagram here. On day 1, she's going to say, this is menses. On day 7, she's going to say, it's still menses, but it changed. She's going to take note of that. Got weaker. On day 12, she's going to say, it's still menses, it got even weaker. On day 15, she's going to say, it's still menses, and it got even weaker. On day 16, she's going to say, this can't all be menses now. She doesn't know what's coming in the future, so she can't judge yet. So on day 16, she has to make a decision. So she's going to see how much of this can be menses altogether. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 colors. 3 of these 4 colors are stronger than the 4th one. And they all fit inside the days of menses. So my answer is that her menses here is 14 days. And day 15 starts the sickness bleeding. And then on day 18, it changed again, got even weaker, still going to be sickness bleeding. So my answer is her menses is 14 days here. Let's see. So what do we judge as her menses? Answer, the conditions of differentiating are satisfied, hence the woman does not resort to her habit. The black, red, and pink bleedings do not exceed 15 days, so they are suitable to be considered menses by way of distinguishing. Correct answer, 14 days. As for the murky, it cannot be considered part of the menses because along with what is before it, the duration will exceed 15 days. Hence, the murky with the yellow are judged as defective bleeding. Yes. Question 6. A woman gave birth and had postpartum bleeding for 50 days. Then she delivered a second time and saw black blood for 20 days. Then red blood for 25 days. Then it stopped for 5 days. Then pink blood flowed and lasted beyond 60 days. What is judged as her postpartum bleeding? So let's look at that again. A woman gave birth and had postpartum bleeding for 50 days. That establishes her norm, first of all. Her first postpartum bleeding establishes her norm, just like menses. Her first menstrual cycle establishes her norm. Then she delivered a second time and saw black blood for 20 days. So she's going to say that's all postpartum. Then red blood for 25 days. So that's a total of 45 days. She's still inside her 60 days. She's going to say that's all postpartum. Then pink blood flowed and lasted beyond the 60 days. What is judged as her postpartum bleeding? I'm going to say 45 days because those two together were suitable to be postpartum, and then what came after that went beyond the 60. And here, her norm is disregarded. That's my answer. Let's see. Answer. The pink blood is not counted as menses because it started before the maximum duration of postpartum bleeding. And it was not separated from the previous bleeding by 15 days. The black and red bleedings together are valid to be counted as postpartum because they did not exceed its maximum. Hence, it is judged that this woman's postpartum bleeding was 45 days. Correct answer by way of distinguishing. And the pink blood is defective, and there's no consideration given to the woman's previous habit because the conditions of distinguishing are satisfied. Alhamdulillah. So far I'm passing. MashaAllah. Question 7. A woman experiencing defective bleeding sees 10 days of red blood, then 10 days of black blood, and so on. Let me start that again. A woman experiencing defective bleeding sees 10 days of red blood, then 10 days of black blood, and so on. Yani 10 red, 10 black, 10 red, 10 black. She remembers that her menses comes at the beginning of the month, but is forgetful of whether her habit was 6 days of menses, 24 days of purity, or 7 days of menses, or 23 days of purity. What does she judge of the month as her menses and what as her purity. Let me read that one more time. A woman experiencing defective bleeding. She sees 10 days of red blood, then 10 days of black blood. So that's 20 days. Right there, too much can't be all menses. And so on. She remembers that her menses come at the beginning of the month. So let's say, starting from day one. But she's forgetful of whether her habit was 6 days of menses, 24 days of purity, or 7 days of menses and 23 days of purity. What does she judge of the month as her menses and what as her purity? The rule is whatever is certainly menses is judged as menses, and whatever is certainly purity is judged as purity, and anything else she takes precautionary measures. So in this scenario, she's not a distinguishing woman because she has 10 of black, but then 10 of red, but then 10 of black, and then 10 of red. She's not a distinguishing woman, so she has to resort to her habit. But the problem is she forgot. Is it 6 days or 7 days? So what is for sure her menses? 6 days. Because she's doubting 6 days or 7 days. What's the rule when you have a doubt like that? Go by the lower number. If you doubt it, did I pray 3 rakahs or 4? Then how many you prayed for sure? 3. If a man said, did I divorce my wife twice or thrice? Then twice. The third one is doubtful, so he throws it away. Here, she forgot. Is my menses 6 days or 7 days? So 6 days is menses for sure, and then the seventh day is doubtful. She needs precautionary measures on that seventh day. And then after that is purity for sure. That's my answer. Let me see your answers here. Cutting. Oh no. How's voice? How's voice? Can you hear me now? Cutting voice. Good voice. Good now? Okay. All right, then let me repeat. A woman experiencing defective bleeding sees 10 days of red blood. Then 10 days of black blood. And so on. 10, 10, 10, 10. So she's not distinguishing. That means right now we already know she has to resort to her habit. She remembers that her menses comes at the beginning of the month. So let's say it starts on day 1. But she's doubtful of whether her habit was 6 days of menses and 24 days of purity, or 7 days of menses and 23 days of purity, which means whichever one it is, she's sure of 6 days. And the rule is whatever is definitively menses is going to be judged as menses. So for sure she has 6 days of menses. In the 7th day, she's going to have to do precautionary measures. What does she judge of the month as her menses and what as her purity? So that's my answer. 6 days is her menses for sure. And the 7th day, she needs precautionary measures and the rest is purity. Answer. The conditions of distinguishing are not satisfied in this woman since there are not 15 days separating the 2 strong bleedings. So she resorts to her habit. The first 6 days of the month are menses with certainty, and the 7th day is possibly menses and possibly purity and possibly cessation. So she takes precautionary measures for it. The days after the 7th until the end of the month are purity with certainty. Correct answer. Question 8. A woman experiencing defective bleeding sees 10 days of red blood, then 20 days of yellow blood, with red streaks, and so on. 10 of red, 20 days of yellow with red streaks, then 10 of red, then 20 days of yellow with red streaks. She remembers that her habit was 7 days of menses, but does not remember if her menses begins on the first of the month or the second. What is judged as menses in the month and what as purity? So let's see. She has defective bleeding for 10 days, red blood. Then 20 days of yellow blood with red streaks. The rule is if a weaker color has a dot or a streak of a stronger color, then all of it is the stronger color. So it means that she's seeing here by judgment 30 days of red blood. Says here 10 days of red blood, 20 days of yellow blood with red streaks. The red streaks bumps all the yellow up to being red. So it means then 30 days of red blood. She remembers that her habit was 7 days of menses. And she's not a distinguishing woman here, so she's going to have to resort to her habit 7 days. But she does not remember if her menses begins on the first of the month or the second, which means that for sure on the second of the month, she's menstruating, for sure. And on the first of the month, she's not sure, so she has to take precautionary measures. But not for the cessation. She doesn't have to take a ghusl on the first or the second, because that's when the menses should be coming on, not going off. She does not remember if her menses begins on the first of the month or the second. What is judged as menses in the month and what as purity? So the first day is doubtfully the beginning of menses. She takes precautionary measures. The second day is for sure menses, but it might be the first day and it might be the second day. And then the third day might be the second day or it might be the third day. And like that, so on. And she knows that she goes for 7 days. So then, first day, she's going to take precautionary measures. Second day, she's going to take, second day, she's in menses for sure, because that's what she remembers. The answer here is not coming to me. Let's see. Answer. The conditions of distinguishing, hold on, let me give it another try before I look. So a woman experiencing defective bleeding for sees 10 days. So she's always bleeding. It doesn't stop. She sees 10 days of red blood and 20 days of yellow blood with red streaks. So it means it's all red. So we're going to just judge that she has 30 continual days of red blood. So she's not distinguishing. She remembers her habit was 7 days. So that means if either, and that it starts on the first or the second. So that means that it ends when? On the 8th or the 9th. Right? So if it starts on the first, then that means the 8th day would be her purity, for sure, if it were. And if it starts on the second, then the 9th day is going to be the purity, for sure. And then everything after that is purity. So the first day is possibly menses. Second day is for sure menses. Third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day. And the 8th day is possibly the cessation, so she needs to take a ghusl. And the 9th day is possibly cessation, so she needs to take a ghusl. And then the 10th and beyond is she's clean. Yani she's pure. She's not menstruating. She doesn't need to take a ghusl. She's not menstruating. She's going to make a ghusl for every prayer if she doesn't remember if her menses, when her menses would stop. Like in what hour. Did her menses used to stop at sunset? If so, then she only has to take a ghusl at sunset. If she doesn't remember at all, then she needs to take a ghusl for every prayer. Okay, so that's my answer. Let's see. Answer. The conditions of distinguishing are not satisfied with in this woman because the yellow with red streaks is similar to the red. Correct. Hence, it is not considered that she saw the blood with two characteristics, strong and weak. Correct. It's all like red blood. The first day of the month bears the possibility of menses and purity, and bearing the possibility of the commencement of menses and not cessation. Correct. Hence, the woman takes precautionary measures for this first day. Yes. And she is not obligated to perform a ghusl for it. Then, from the beginning of the second day till the end of the seventh day, she counts that as menses with certainty. Yes. As for the eighth day, it bears the possibility of menses and of purity with the possibility of the cessation of blood. Yes. Hence, she takes precautionary measures for it and performs a ghusl for every prayer unless she remembers the time of cessation, like at noon, for instance, or she performs a ghusl then only. She judges the ninth day until the end of the month as purity with certainty. That's where I was wrong. I said ninth day also, she's not sure. So no, I'm not gonna get the answer for that. Maybe partial credit at best. Khalas, no credit for me there. I think I'm still passing though. How many more questions we have? 9, 10. Two more questions. Question 9. A woman sees a consistent flow of black blood. One day with a smell and the next without a smell. She remembers that her period lasts for 5 days, but she does not remember when her period used to come. So what is her judgment? Let's see. A consistent flow of black blood. So, but one day comes out with a smell, the next day without a smell. So on and off. She remembers that her period lasts for 5 days, but she does not remember when her period used to come. Then that means every day, yani the whole month, then she's a confused woman. Let me read that one more time. A consistent flow of black blood. A consistent flow of black blood. One day with a smell, the next day without a smell. So that means strong and weak. The strong is not at least 24 hours, not more than 15 days. The weak is not at least 15 days. She's not distinguishing here. It means she needs to resort back to her habit, which is going to be 5 days. But she doesn't remember when her period used to come, so that means every day is possibly menses, and every day is possibly purity. So she has to take precautionary measures for every day. That's my answer. Let's see. Answer. The conditions of differentiating are not fulfilled in this woman, and there are no sufficient signs in this case by which she can judge what is surely menses or surely purity. Hence, precaution is taken for the entire month, like the confused woman who forgot both the time and duration. Correct answer. Question 10. A woman says, usually my menses lasts for 5 days. This month I saw 5 days of red blood. Then the blood stopped. Then on the 7th day, red blood returned. So I judged it as menses because she's still inside her 15 days. However, now I do not remember whether this is the 13th day of my period or the 14th. So how do I judge the blood if it continues and the conditions of distinction are not fulfilled? Let's see here. She says, usually my menses is 5 days. This month I saw 5 days of red blood. And then it stopped. So when it stopped, she took a ghusl. Then on the 7th day, red blood returns. So she judged it as menses because she's still inside her 15 days. And she says those 2 days in between were not valid prayers or fasting, but still rewardable. However, now I do not remember whether this is the 13th day of my period or the 14th. So how do I judge the blood if it continues and the conditions of distinction were not fulfilled? So what do we know for sure? We know for sure that she got 13 days, but she's not sure. Is this 13 or 14? So that means 13 are certain, and the 14th day she's doubtful if that's even how long she's been bleeding so far. So then she's saying, I don't know, is this the 13th or the 14th? So if it's the 14th, that means if she's still bleeding in 2 days, it's postpartum. It's a sickness bleeding. If it's the 13th, if she's still bleeding in 3 days, then it's sickness bleeding. The answer's not coming to me here. Answer: the day she is presently in is judged as menstruation. Yes, because it is either the 13th or the 14th day. Yes. Hence, it is known that her blood did not yet exceed 15 days. Yes. Likewise, the following day, if the blood keeps flowing, would be judged as menstruation because it is either the 14th or the 15th. Yes. As for the day after that, it is possibly the 15th or the 16th. So she takes precautionary measures in it on that day because it is possibly menstruation and possibly purity. Had I just thought a little longer, I would have got that. I think I still passed though.